biggest games, the best performances, expert analysis. You are Locked On Now.
You're listening to Locked On Now, local experts on the biggest stories around the NBA. I'm your host, Kim Becker, and thanks so much for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday morning. On today's show, the NBA started off the week with a bang and plenty of big matchups for us to hear the inside scoop on. Our Locked On NBA hosts are here to do just that. Give you everything you need to know from last night in the association. Let's start with Tuesday's best performance.
The best performance.
Hold up.
Anthony Davis was on the NBA's 75th anniversary team, and he sure played like it Tuesday night. Davis scored 35 and pulled down 17 rebounds, and Lakers needed all of it to escape San Antonio with a 4-point win.
Hey, this is Jeff Garcia with Locked On Spurs, here to give you a quick recap of the Spurs' heartbreaking loss in overtime to the Los Angeles Lakers, 125-121. It was a great game from start to end. At halftime, I even mentioned that it was going to be a fight, and that's exactly what it was. It was a fight to the bitter end. But this is going to be a theme for the Spurs throughout the entire season as they are beginning their rebuild and their young team. Lessons learned. Had a lead going into that final frame. Had a largest lead as big as 12 points and just failed to maintain it. They let the Lakers claw back. Anthony Davis just went wild on San Antonio, finishing with 35 points, 15 for 31 for the Lakers to pace them to the Spurs, to handing the Spurs a loss. Overall, it was just a heartbreaking loss for the young Spurs team that are on now a 3-game losing streak, 1 for 3 to start this season. What did it come down to? Free throws. Simple as that. And even in overtime, 12 for 22. Yeah, you missed 10 free throws and key free throws down the stretch. Spurs also had more turnovers, 16 to 13. Jakob Poeltl, surprising, 27 points, 13 to 17 to lead the Spurs in scoring. Once again, this is just a lesson learned for this young team, how to hold on to leads, how to step up in crunch time, who's going to take that shot. That was all on display for the Spurs team that is in a rebuild right now. Overall, it was just a heartbreaking loss for a very young team that showed a lot of heart versus a very talent-heavy Los Angeles Lakers. The Spurs will next play the Mavericks on October 28th in Dallas, and hopefully they'll snap their 3-game losing streak. This is Jeff Garcia with Locked On Spurs.
The Knicks looked strong again in Madison Square Garden on Tuesday, this time against the Philadelphia 76ers. 6 Knicks hit double figures in scoring, including Julius Randle, Kemba Walker, and Derrick Rose. And our Locked On Knicks host is happy with a team effort and a 3-1 start.
What is up, everybody? Alex Wolf from Locked On Knicks here, and the Knicks win 112-99 over the Philadelphia 76ers on national television at home in front of the Madison Square Garden crowd. Put the bad memory of that terrible Orlando loss on Sunday behind them in a big way. Huge effort from the whole team tonight. Kemba Walker leads the way with 19 points. 5 different Knicks finish in double figures, including Evan Fournier with 18 and Julius Randle with 16, flirting with a triple-double. And it was just a great effort all around for the Knicks. They shot the lights out once again, 16 of 37 from 3 as a team. That's 43.2%. So they just continue to do amazing things from behind the arc to start this season, including tying the NBA record for most threes through 4 games to start a season in NBA history, tying the NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks from last year. So I'm not saying, but I'm saying. Anyway, if you want to hear more about this game, definitely check out Locked On Knicks, where we got you covered every single day with great Knicks coverage.
Coming up, our Locked On NBA hosts help wrap up our look around last night's NBA action on Locked On Now. Welcome back to Locked On Now. I'm your host, Kim Becker, and thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday. Now let's turn to our Locked On NBA hosts for a recap of the rest of the action around the NBA on Tuesday.
Let's go around the league.
The Golden State Warriors went to Oklahoma City and stayed undefeated on Tuesday by taking down the Thunder 106-98. Steph Curry dropped in another 23 to lead 3 Warriors with at least 20. And Locked On Warriors fills you in on the rest from the Golden State side.
Wes Goldberg from Locked On Warriors here, and a little bit of a scare for Golden State tonight. They go into Oklahoma City having not lost a game. The Thunder had not yet won a game, but the Thunder got out to a lead early, led by as many as 15, led by 11 at halftime. But the Warriors go on a 22-1 run between the third and fourth quarters, fueled by Andrew Wiggins and Damian Lee to take the lead and then keep that undefeated label alive. Wiggins was the MVP for the Warriors tonight. 21 points on 9 of 17 shooting, 4 assists, 3 steals and a block. Got to the rim often and really just asserted his will offensively. And then Damian Lee off the bench, 20 points on 8 for 14 shooting, 4 of 7 from three-point range to go along with 3 rebounds and assists. He was absolutely awesome. He just keeps getting better every year that he's in the league. So the Warriors are now 4-0, and they begin an 8-game homestand, looking like they could be a real contender in the Western Conference.
The Rockets were outscored by 13 in the second half, with Luka Doncic finishing the game with 26 points and 14 rebounds. The Mavericks advanced to 2-1, while the Rockets fall to 1-3. Here's Locked On Rockets and Locked On Mavericks for more.
A competitive first half of basketball and then falling flat to start the third quarter. What's up? Jackson Gatlin here over at Locked On Rockets. Look, the Rockets had a really, really competitive first half of basketball, even led the Dallas Mavericks at halftime, playing with a lot of pace, finished the first half on a high note. KPJ gets a steal, gets out in transition, kicks it to Daniel Tice for the dunk. They take a lead into the intermission period, but then that start of the third quarter, the Rockets found themselves in a hole that they created for themselves. They turned the ball over 4 times within the first 3 minutes of the third quarter after only coughing it up 6 times across the entirety of the first half of play. Just completely got all out of sorts offensively. Defensively, rotation started kind of faltering a little bit. Mavericks get out to a big lead. And unfortunately, the Rockets were able to not really pull within more than just a couple buckets the rest of the way. David Nwaba checked in for Jayshawn Tate after he picked up his 5th foul in this game and was the spark that the Rockets needed to get back into this game, but ultimately just not enough in the tank after digging themselves such a hole in the third quarter. So we'll break down all the different angles from this game over at Locked On Rockets.
The Dallas Mavericks get the win in the home opener. Nick Engstead from the Locked On Mavericks podcast here. And the name of the game tonight was experimentation. The Dallas Mavericks trotted out every single one of their 15 players on the roster, and Jason Kidd was just trying stuff. He was throwing stuff out. He was throwing up lineups we hadn't seen before. He was throwing out lineups we hadn't even thought of before. Multiple wings together, multiple bigs together. Boban got some minutes early. Frank Ntilikina, Moses Brown got some minutes. It was just a free-for-all, it seems like, of who was going to get some minutes. We knew he was going to experiment a little bit, but it was fascinating to watch and see all those guys out there at different times. Reggie Bullock, also a question I asked Jason Kidd last week. Why isn't Reggie Bullock getting some more time? The Mavs brought him in, paid him some money. He's one of the highest paid players on the team, and he comes off the bench and he scores for the Mavericks, hits a bunch of threes, and he played really well for them. And so Reggie Bullock, experimentation, that seems to be the name of the game. Luka Doncic also had a solid game for himself. Jalen Brunson off the bench had 9 assists of his own. A really solid outing from him. We'll talk about it more on today's Locked On Mavs.
Tuesday's NBA nightcap featured the only Western Conference game of the night with 2 teams above 500. I know we're only 3 games into the season, but still. The Denver Nuggets traveled to Utah to play the undefeated Jazz, but couldn't stop a hot Utah team from taking another win. With more on what went wrong for Denver, here's our Locked On Jazz host.
The Utah Jazz outlast the short-handed Denver Nuggets to win their 3rd straight game to open the year. I'm David Locke with Locked On Jazz, and this was an incredible game with 30 lead changes, multiple ties. But when Nikola Jokic went out of the game with 1:50 left in the second quarter, the texture of the game changed. Will Barton for the Nuggets dominated the third quarter and kept it close, but the Jazz just had too much firepower by the end with the Nuggets playing without Jamal Murray and without Nikola Jokic late. Jordan Clarkson flamethrowed through the third quarter for the Jazz, and then late it was a combination of players. The Jazz took advantage of the Nuggets, who last year were last in the NBA at defending the rim, by dominating in the 2-point range. The Jazz shot very poorly from 3, shot about 65% of 2-point shots to carry them to a dominating offensive performance tonight. Jazz beat the Nuggets. No major takeaways from this one because while Nikola Jokic was on the floor, the Nuggets shot 20 of 27 from the floor, and the Jazz could not get stops, nor could the Nuggets, frankly, in that time period. And the game was even. The Jazz outlasted the Nuggets late because they simply just didn't have enough guys left to be able to match the Jazz firepower. Jazz start the year 3-0. If you want more, go to Locked On Jazz and the Locked On Podcast Network.
That's a wrap for us here on Locked On Now. Thank you for making us your first listen every weekday morning. And for more on the association and your team, make your second listen Locked On NBA and your team's Locked On podcast. Locked On, your team every day.